Welcome to Podkey Slopcast, where agentic AI gets tested against reality instead of hype. A lot of the AI story right now is shifting from chatbots that answer questions to agents that actually do things. That sounds like a small upgrade until the model is planning tasks, controlling software, and taking actions that can cost money, leak data, or save hours. The core claim is straightforward. Combine model reasoning with tools, give it memory across steps, and suddenly you're not asking for a paragraph, you're delegating chunks of work. Planning, research, drafting, presentation building, even sending email all move from one-shot prompting into a management-style workflow where the human assigns, reviews, and escalates. That matters because the product change is bigger than the UI change. If the model can use a browser, a mouse, and the operating system, it's no longer just helping think, it's acting inside real software. The exciting version is obvious. Hours of fiddly work compressed into minutes. The harder question is what kind of work survives contact with error, ambiguity, and edge cases. Agent demos often highlight the happy path. The practical story is whether the system can recover when a page loads differently, a file format breaks, or the task itself was underspecified. That's why a deployment guide like the Loop is more useful than generic futurism. It focuses on costs, model selection, failure modes, and how agents fit into tools people actually use, like Cloud Code, Cursor, and Codex. The phrase robust agentic loops is doing a lot of work here. A loop isn't magic autonomy. It's a repeated cycle of plan, act, inspect, revise, and usually ask for help at the right moment. If that loop is designed well, the agent becomes leverage. If it's designed poorly, you just automate confusion faster. There's also a trade-off hiding under the hood. More autonomy can raise productivity, but it also expands the blast radius of mistakes. The right setup depends less on vibes and more on how expensive failure is in that specific task. The most important safety point here is not abstract alignment talk, it's permissions. If an agent can send emails, make purchases, or control the OS, then defaulting to ask before act is a sensible baseline until trust is earned and the error profile is understood. The example comparing model behavior is useful because it shows how much product defaults matter. One system sent an email based on a prior granted permission, while another asked again for confirmation. Neither behavior is automatically right in every context. Reusing permission can feel efficient, but it increases the chance that an old approval gets stretched into a new action the user did not mean to authorize. Repeated confirmation can be annoying, but in security-sensitive workflows, annoyance is often cheaper than cleanup. And computer use features raise the stakes further. Once an agent can download software, run apps, or manipulate files, the question stops being whether it's impressive and becomes whether you understand what it's allowed to touch. The model ranking story here is less about a universal leaderboard and more about tiering by consequence. For low-stakes tasks, free or cheaper models can be perfectly rational. If the job is brainstorming, light drafting, or disposable research, a few errors are tolerable. For production work, the recommendation narrows fast to frontier models, with examples like Claude and GPT 5.6, plus careful tuning on things like temperature. That narrowing may sound like brand bias, but there's a concrete logic behind it. In high-stakes use, reliability compounds. A small drop in quality becomes bigger when the model is chaining many steps, touching tools, and generating outputs that people may trust too quickly. The mixed assessment of Gemini is interesting because it separates categories that people often blur together. Falling short as the top choice for serious agentic work doesn't mean the whole platform is weak. Notebook-style workflows and multimodal tools can still be genuinely useful, even if the frontier reasoning model isn't the first pick for production loops. So the better question isn't who won the model war this week, it's what level of reliability your workflow actually requires and whether you're judging a model on the task it is best at. The proofreading example is one of the stronger concrete claims in the set. GPT 5.6 reportedly scanned a full PDF with 195 references and produced pages of notes without hallucinated citations or factual errors. If that account is accurate, that's a meaningful benchmark because citation-heavy review is exactly where people expect models to stumble. But even that success comes with a useful caution. High factual accuracy does not automatically equal high practical value. If the output is overly nitpicky, the human still has to decide what matters, what is stylistic, and what is worth changing. In other words, correctness can create its own overload. That points to a broader pattern with AI tools right now. They may be crossing the threshold from unreliable to dependable in some narrow tasks, but they're not crossing the threshold from assistant to final authority. The AI Summer Adventure framing is notable because it packages capability building as a structured program instead of a pile of disconnected prompts and tutorials. Quick trips target immediate personal productivity, like building an AI identity. Excursions and expeditions aim at longer-term deliverables, like a full creative project, an AI-staffed micro-business through Lemonade Stand, or a production loop through The Loop. On the surface, that's playful branding. Underneath, it's a way of solving a real adoption problem. Most people don't need more AI news. They need a sequence of tasks that closes a specific capability gap. The open question is how transferable those gains are. A guided project can absolutely make someone productive faster, but it can also hide how much depends on hand-holding, curated examples, and careful task selection. The enterprise angle brings all of this back to incentives. Rackspace is positioning itself as an operator for the full enterprise AI stack, with governed infrastructure, inference, engineering support, and operational help for compliance-heavy environments. That pitch makes sense because enterprises usually don't fail at AI for lack of a demo. They fail when governance, security, integration, and accountability are bolted on too late. At the same time, vendor language around full-stack governance can blur two different promises, having capable infrastructure and actually reducing organizational risk. Those are related, but they aren't identical. A governed platform can help, especially in regulated settings, yet the hardest governance questions still sit with the customer. Who can approve actions, what data can be touched, how outputs are audited, and who is responsible when the model is wrong? The through line here is simple. The more AI moves from talking to acting, the more workflow design and permission design matter. That's it for Podkey Slopcast. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.